Well, hello, how are you?
I still don't hear.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
Okay, we're live, and so I'm going to back up here, and I apologize. Listen, everybody, I'm going to read you an amazing sponsor that we have. Lem's Meat Varnish isn't just another meat sauce. It's a champion. Their sauces have taken multiple awards for their best sauce in barbecue competition throughout the South. When you taste their secret recipe, you will understand why it's a winner. Also, they have an amazing jalapeno fire syrup. It's infused with a simple syrup, a hot squirt of genius for over 100 uses. Get you some on Amazon.com. Amazon.com. So today, LJ here, the Go Biz guy, that we continue the saga of entrepreneurs. And I think it's going to be interesting because this is just in time for Halloween, okay? And I think it's the spook of all spooks. I've been to this facility. I don't know what to call it a facility or not, but at any rate, so I'm going to introduce to you my co-host today. She's been employed at the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum for 16 years. She's trained actors and managed haunted houses attractions for all of her years of service and recently started managing filming events. She previously served as paranormal events manager and historical tour guide. I'm drinking cold coffee, so I stutter. And I'd like to introduce you, Michelle Graham. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah. So give me a little bit of background about yourself. Are you a native to West Virginia or?
I am. I was born and raised in West Virginia. I live about 25 minutes or so from the asylum. I currently work as a teacher at Pierpont Community and Technical College. I teach adults with special needs life skills, and I also work at the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
Okay, so being raised in West Virginia in that area and everything, what do you think some of the cultural attractions are? Or talk to me a little bit about the culture in that region of West Virginia.
Well, the culture here is pretty close-knit and tight. We have a lot of pride in the things that we have here in West Virginia, one of which, of course, is the asylum. When you think about these bigger attractions, you think about like Moundsville Prison, but just right around the area where the asylum is, you've got Stonewall, Jackson's Mill. We have a glass museum. So we take a lot of pride in the history of our area, and we definitely like to share that with other people who visit.
That's awesome. So just talking about the entrepreneurial side, the saga in which we kind of explore the person that's associated, et cetera, et cetera. So what'd your parents do in that area? What'd they do?
Well, my mom was a stay-at-home mom when I was younger, and then she started working for the school board, and my father worked at the local hospital, which is a pretty big employer for a lot of our area community. But my family also did reenacting when I was younger, so we do pre-Civil War reenacting, which is what got me onto the campus at the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and still has me there today.
Pre-Civil War. So, I've been to one of those in Putnam County, and it was quite interesting to see everybody dressed up. I had a dear friend of mine I lost a couple years ago, but he did reenactments, and he looked exactly like Grant. I mean, his beard, his demeanor. It was quite interesting to see him reenact and everything. But
it's very cool.
Yeah. So, what spurred your interest in your family's acting abilities? I mean, is this something that's been passed down by generations, or?
So in theater, in high school, I was pretty heavily involved in the arts with show choir and theater. And once I became a parent myself, they saw a need for a play sponsor and theater director at my kids' local high school. So I took on that role because I also used to work for the school board. And so I lost the high school theater. I've assistant directed some community theater, and currently I am producing theater at another local high school right now. So I have about 13 years in local theater directing and producing. So definitely our haunt is a big theatrical haunt, which kind of drew me into that realm as well.
Well, it's interesting because I don't think I'm an actor, but
everybody's an actor.
No, right? Okay, yeah, because I think that I don't know. I mean, I do this podcast and I'm helping a dear friend of mine grow her business and taking it to the national level and everything. And so, entrepreneurship is kind of a way of life for a lot of people. And I don't know how we connect the dots in our towns. I mean, you mentioned a couple of places that are huge, Stonewall and everything, but these are all businesses. And I think that we have to acknowledge that Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I mean, it is a business, right?
It is. We have about almost 70 employees currently, I believe.
Wow. Okay. What kind of revenue stream and how do you gain revenue?
So we do events throughout the year. We have our fall festival, which brings in some tourism. We're really a tourist attraction. That's our main source of revenue, with a few extra events that we have thrown in throughout the year that help us gain money. We're a business, but we are primarily focused on preserving and restoring the Kirkbride building on campus that we inhabit. So everything that we do is a labor of love. Our actors in the haunted house, I believe we have about 100 this year that we manage and train. Most of them are locals who also have a love of history and acting, and we just have this huge misfit band of people that come together and create this awesome show that we put on for the public, and that money also goes right back into the preservation and restoration of the main building.
That's interesting. So did you say the word misfits? 100 people of misfits get together?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, you can get the most creative band of people. Every year they come to auditions, and every year we see them and we think, wow, you'd be perfect for this role and we could put you in there. But getting that many creative personalities together is just something really, really special that we do every year.
It's amazing. We talked a little bit about the area and everything, to pool that many creative people in a small geographic area, or do they come from different areas in order to try out?
So they come from, I think the furthest that we have driving this year is just about an hour away, and they come every day just to do the same things that we do. It's really hard to find creative outlets in this small town that we live in, and I mean, scare acting is really a fun outlet for people who are looking for something exciting and a little bit of an adrenaline rush. So we definitely have that draw, and we really become, I know this is very cliche, but like a little family. I mean, they say that we're haunt family. They miss it when it's not there, and, all year long I'm getting messages from people. I can't wait for haunt season to come back. I can't wait for haunt season to come back. So it's something that they look forward to coming back and participating in year after year.
That's pretty cool. And they're all volunteers, right? I mean, they don't get paid anything, right?
Well, we do have contract actors, so we're a non-union, of course, but we do some compensation for some of our actors that are 16 and older that fill some of our main roles. But we definitely show our gratitude. We do prizes on Sundays. We make sure that everybody's fed before they go out there and work for us. We definitely have just a really unique blend of things that keep people interested. We definitely make sure that they know they're appreciated.
We'll talk about main actors. Explain to me a little bit about the breakdown of those actors.
Sure. So we would have a lead actor in a scene who is kind of responsible for driving the message that we're trying to portray in that area. And then they might have somebody that we would consider a distraction in there. So when the person is being the distraction, the other person is gearing up to jump out and do their part so that they could scare people. We have a couple of stunt actors. We have people on stilts and harnesses. So it's just kind of a mismatch and array of different things within our show that would make you a lead actor. We have people that are flow control, which means their sole purpose is to make sure people are moving forward continually and that the groups are separated so that we can maximize our scare efforts. So, there's a lot of different things that go into a show like that I don't think people are really aware of.
Yeah, so that's behind the scenes and everything, just a little snapshot and everything. So let's dig a little bit deeper here. So who is the creative behind all this?
That would be one of our owners, John Jordan.
Okay.
So he comes up with the path for the haunted house. He builds all of the animatronics and all of the scare spots. He does a lot of that. And then me and some of our other creative team, we come in and we create the actors and the characters and the lines and do a little bit of staging to fill those scenes up. But all of it comes out of his brain. He always comes up with the theme and the name, and we work around his vision.
I love it. So he's got a little bit of background in theatrics and stuff too?
Well, since he's been at the asylum, yes, he's definitely developed that side of himself.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So explain to me a little bit, and that's kind of neat. I didn't realize that you guys had so many actors, and then you paid some actors, and
sure.
The whole thing. I part of me kind of wishes I was in theatrics in high school, but I was a jock. Okay, and so jocks don't cross over into that line, right? And
in our area, they do.
Do they really?
They certainly do, especially in the high school world. We have lots of students who play soccer and tennis and football, and they come and they're also in the show choir or they come and do theater with us. So, yeah, we're pretty fortunate that we have that nice, well-rounded group of students who get to do all of it.
Well, that's what I get from being from California then, okay? I should have I should have been raised in West Virginia. I probably would have had a different skill set. So, but let's so that's pretty cool about the acting side of it. But let's talk a little bit about the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I do know that it referenced paranormal, and so I'd like to get your definition of what paranormal is all about.
So I think that it's so subjective to each person that comes and visits our location. Everyone's looking for answers to the unexplained. Now, I would consider myself a guarded skeptic. However, working at the asylum for 16 years, I don't think that you can work in there and not believe in the paranormal. It's just that frequent that you have experiences. But I always try to come up with an explanation for why things happen. But again, in 16 years, that's something that I haven't been able to do a lot of times. I always think that, in my perspective, they say energy can't be created nor destroyed. So when someone passes, where does that energy go? Is kind of how I look at that. And I definitely believe that some of the energy of the patients and staff of the asylum are still there on campus.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the asylum and everything. Because, back, I think it's in the 1800s, I think, when this asylum got established. I knew I think it closed its doors in 1994, but so what did the doctor have in mind, and what was his name that started the asylum? Was it called the asylum when he started it?
So it was the asylum across the Allegheny Mountains. So yes, it was called an asylum back then. Eventually, when it closed in 94, it was referred to as the Weston State Hospital is what it closed its doors when some of that terminology became outdated. But in preserving that history, we wanted to go back to the very original name. It was established in 1858 and opened its doors to the first patients in 1864 and then didn't close until 1994. So we have a huge array of history of the progression of mental health treatments in that huge span that we had the asylum open. There plan was the building is in a Kirkbride plan, so it was built in a shallow V formation,
Okay.
which allows for ample fresh air and sunlight exchange. And they believe that patients with beautiful surroundings and mental and physical stimulation would be cured from their mental illness. So definitely the best intentions when that place was built. They did see peak overcrowding, right?
Well, listen to my Halloween laugh.
I know.
Oh my gosh, with the best intentions. So let's hop a little bit. Intentions. What was the doctor's name? What was the doctor's name that really established the asylum?
His name was Thomas Story Kirkbride.
Okay.
So they believed in the beginning when there was a superintendent that they would only be able to visit with and take care of the needs of 250 patients in that huge 242,000 square foot building. But in the 1960s, overcrowding became about 25 to 2,600 patients.
Jeez.
Which meant understaffing, overcrowding. I always say that if you were a person who had the best of intentions, it was a great place for you to work. If you were a person that had the worst of intentions, it was a great place for you to work. So,
well, okay. So if you work there and they said, because I've read some of the stuff why they would place people in the asylum, and it's a little bit crazy. Well, it is crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you work there and they said, oh my gosh, you wear underarm deodorant, you're going to be slammed into a room because that's not good for you, and you're going to. What were some of the treatments? I mean, to help me out with a little bit of the transition. So I'm jibber jabbering here. So you need to correct me and tell me to shut up. Okay.
Okay.
So what happens is he establishes this, okay, in 1958 and the doors open at 1964. So is he?
It was 1858 and
1858. Okay, I'm messing up. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Okay, but so what is he? Why did he? So was he a psychologist? Was he what kind of doctor was he?
I believe he was just a medical doctor, and he just saw a need to fill this lack of treatment for people who were suffering from mental illness at the time. Now, that definitely got away from them because you did say some of the reasons that you could be committed. Most of the time in the earlier years, it was just a husband with an unruly wife dropping her off, and all it took was his word. All it took was his word to say that she was unstable, and she was left there until he came back to get her. If ever.
So maybe we should institutionalize it again so men have an outlet to get rid of their wives. What do you think? Yeah.
I would say no, because I would probably be there as well.
Oh my gosh. So, but he was a regular doctor, and I'm trying to get to his credentials, to be honest with you. He's a regular doctor. And so it's called a lunatic asylum. Back then, how do you define a lunatic?
So again, that was just a male relative or husband. They just took their word for it. Now later on, honestly, I can't remember what year it was, but I was just reading something about this. They realized that the criteria was very slim for putting people in there. And
yes.
They decided, it was terrible, so they decided to create something that they called a commission of lunacy. And
a commission of lunacy?
Yes, and you had to be deemed insane by this panel of people before you would be admitted for treatment.
A freaking panel. Okay.
Yes.
Well, continue the story, because all right. So let's look at, I'm trying to visualize, Weston, West Virginia. Okay. And I'm trying to visualize.
It's a small town with the asylum just poked right there in the middle of the town.
Exactly.
And that when they come in.
And let's talk about the sidebar about the archaeology of that. That's one of the largest buildings outside of what?
The Kremlin in Moscow. Yeah, the asylum is the largest hand-cut stone building in the world, aside from the Kremlin.
Can you imagine? I mean, from ground zero. So help me out with the years. 1858, you said, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe construction was complete in 1872, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so it wasn't completed, but he was still bringing on lunatics in the asylum.
Yes. So it started on
So
the
did
south
he?
end
Let
of
me
the
just
building.
another way. Did he put those people to work or what? So,
Well, yeah, in the earlier years before it became illegal for patients who were institutionalized to work, they absolutely had jobs every day. There were people that got up and went and worked on the farm, that worked in the kitchen, that were seamstresses. Yes, all of these people in the asylum had jobs.
okay, so they were deemed lunatics, and then he would put them to work and everything, cutting stone. What's the deal?
Oh, no. So they weren't the ones building the place.
Oh.
Originally, it was prisoners that they had starting to
Okay.
build the asylum.
All right.
And then later on, they brought on Irish and German stonemasons
Oh my
who came
gosh.
in to finish the project. But, I mean, honestly, I feel like they're kind of onto something with the whole purpose in life. People who have a purpose in their life are much more eager to get up and contribute as opposed to just wallowing in that self-pity. These people would get up and literally have a job that they did every day at the asylum that made a difference. So I don't think that they were too far off base on that actual aspect of life at the asylum.
Well, so interesting. You bring to the attention that they brought stonemasons from what, Italy and Germany? Did you say?
Ireland and Germany.
Ireland. Okay. Now, that had to cost a pretty penny. Where did this doctor come up with all this money?
Well, when we first started, they started to build the asylum. It was the state of Virginia, and they were the ones that were footing the bill for the building of this structure. But then, right after they started construction, the Civil War broke out.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We had about $30,000 in gold in the Weston Exchange Bank that was earmarked for the construction on the asylum. Well, with the war going on, the state of Virginia wanted that money back so they could fund their war efforts.
That's funny. Yeah.
But the Union, who was occupying the grounds of the asylum at that time, did not want that to happen. So they marched across town and they liberated $30,000 worth of gold.
Over the lunatic asylum.
Right, and they just left enough there they actually took $27,000. They left what was there to pay for the construction that had already happened.
Oh,
and they sent that money to Weston, West Virginia, which was the first capital of our state. The only reason that there is a state of West Virginia is because of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
Wow, nice history there. You go, girl. That's awesome. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. So let me this is great. I could probably go on for about an hour, but I won't. So, what do you think that $30,000 value in today's currency would be?
Well, when we were required to pay that back to the state of Virginia after some time, I don't remember exactly when that was. I know that it was to the tune of millions. So I don't want to be quoted because I'm not 100% sure, but if I remember correctly, it was right around $2 million. Is what that translated to later.
Okay, in what year? I mean, just curious.
I want to say that was I want to say the 1920s, but I am not 100% sure on that one either. I'm a little rusty on that history. It's been a while.
Don't worry about it. I think from a business perspective, you take a look at $30,000 in gold and you look at gold now, okay? And the value of it, for 1 kilo, it goes to about $73,000 per kilo.
Right.
Yeah. And so if you multiply that times whatever amount of gold you have, you've got more than 2 million. You probably have almost 10 million in assets, which, I'm just, so I think it's pretty funny that Civil War, kind of started and they were going back and forth about this lunatic asylum and how structured, to be honest with you. So let's say that, and my wife is no longer with us, but let's say that she decided she wanted to drive me from Charleston, West Virginia. What kind of vehicle would she have chosen to drive me?
Oh my gosh, at that time?
Yeah.
I honestly wouldn't know because I know that when the asylum was first established, all of the staff lived on the premises. The whole 4th floor was designated for staff quarters because there weren't cars and none of that was accessible for them to travel back and forth to a job. So all of the staff lived on campus at that point in time.
Oh wow! And I have to, you have to forgive me. My golden doodle right now is wanting my undivided attention. Okay.
And that is okay.
Yeah. He is. He got me up at 4 o'clock this morning because he wanted to eat. Okay. And so what he does is he throws his ball in my face and jumps on me and beats me up with his paw. So at any
Well,
rate,
that's a great way to wake up.
yeah, at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, okay. So here we are. And you termed, paranormal. Okay.
Yeah.
And it does, and you had identified it kind of refers to the phenomena that goes beyond the scope of scientific understanding, like, ghost hauntings, psychic abilities, supernatural stuff that happens. I'm going to share a story with you and listen to my dog. I mean, he is like just, well, I used to live out in the country, before my wife passed, and so you would hear cows and chickens and everything else like that on the podcast because I never edit anything. And we're live now, so it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Yeah. He is bothering the fire out of me right now. Okay. So, you probably hear him. He's just wanting, anyway. So I lived in a little house in Taze Valley. Okay. And, I don't know. And a lot of people say, well, you ought to be truthful, and I knock it off. Okay. Just be quiet, please. His name is Noogie, and he just, yeah. Oh gosh. He's such a baby. Anyway, so enough of the dog. So I lived in this house and it was just a real small house. But it was interesting because when my wife would come over, we were dating. When my wife would come over, and we'd have dinner or something like that. Like at one particular time, there was a set of golf clubs in the right-hand corner, whatever. And out of nowhere, those golf clubs just fell over. Fell over. Okay. Well, one night I was in bed, and there was a puzzle picture that my dad had done for me, and I put it up in my bedroom, and I was sleeping, and one night, out of the blue, it came off the nails and boom, right down on the dresser. Didn't fall over, didn't do nothing. Okay. And so I part of me doesn't believe in that kind of stuff. Right.
Right.
And then, some crazy things happened, and I thought, maybe because I had too much wine that night, but maybe I saw a silhouette of this lady, So I asked my landlord. I said, hey, I'm going to ask you something. I said, did your mother die here? She said, no. I said, well, I think there's a ghost in here. I said, I don't, not that I'm on drugs or anything, but I said, here's what happened. So, those things are pretty crazy. And I know sometimes, people go through personal, things, and then they want to investigate and they want to try to, code something that actually happened in the phenomena. And so,
Sure.
What are your thoughts?
So I feel like when things like that happen, it may be somebody that's there just trying to get your attention. I think that because it's unexplained, it scares a lot of people. There isn't a place on campus at the asylum that I would be afraid to go by myself because I don't believe that there's anything there that is out to harm us. But, we do tell people that remember that these people may have been disturbed in life and could possibly remain so in death. So you just kind of don't know what you're going to encounter. But, I definitely think that there are some sort of entity out there that's unexplained, that's just trying to get our attention. It's kind of a joke for us that we're like, they probably gather up in a room and they're like, oh my gosh, these people are here again.
No, right? Yeah.
Maybe they're looking at us the same way that we're looking at them as some sort of phenomenon in their plane of existence or whatever they happen to be doing. There's just so much history that I don't believe that there's any way for there not to be some sort of residual energy or sounds and things that you might hear, whether it be in a home that was occupied by somebody else or whether it be at the asylum that was occupied by thousands and thousands of people. Yeah, I just feel like that potential is anywhere that you go.
So, interesting because you managed filming and everything like that, but wasn't Trans-Allegheny on TV once by some Ghostbusters? I'll call them that. They're not Ghostbusters.
Yeah, we've been on every ghost hunting show that there is. We've done Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Brothers. Our most recent filming was Expedition X with Josh Gates, where he does a little bit of dabbling in paranormal and those types of investigations. Yeah, we've kind of run the gamut of filming at the asylum, and every one of them has had an experience while they're there, which is
really.
It would not be. That's not something that's surprising to me at all.
Wow. So my wife, bless her heart, she loved watching paranormal stuff. Okay, and then and she would always say, "Look at that little orb right there." Okay, look at that. I said, well, that ain't nothing and everything. And then she showed me like a silhouette or something where these Ghostbusters, would film in a room, and everything. But then, I had, I've had other experiences and I don't know whether, but, hush, okay, please, you're irritating me. All right. So at any rate, there was a picture of me taken. And it was in a house, but there was this white orb over my head. Mm-hmm. There ain't nobody in the room. Just the camera. And so, we noticed that. And I those things are very, so I'm a Christian. And so I think the spiritual world is an interesting phenomena. And I think that paranormal can intersect with Christianity in a lot of ways. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree. I'm also a Christian. Again, I don't look at it from a dark place or like a place of worship or, I think that there is some sort of spirituality involved in what we do for a lot of people. It's so difficult to explain the different types of people that I've met over 16 years who come to the asylum and their methods of investigating and, their beliefs in what it means when they have some sort of contact. I mean, it's been very, very fascinating to see that over the years and to meet people who are psychics and mediums and, that have those feelings that I don't really have any of those abilities. So meeting people that do is always just something that gets me stuck like glue because I want to hear what they have to say. I want to try to connect those things with the history that I know of the building that is not really publicized to a lot of people and whether they're picking up on some of those things that I know to be true. Yeah, I mean, it's all fascinating to me. And I really don't think that there is a scientific explanation, nor do I know that there ever will be because it's such it's just such an individual experience for everybody that comes. I'm not quite sure how you would document something like that.
So you said something, and I should have wrote it down because it was an interesting statement about knowing, So in Christianity, everybody takes a look at supernatural phenomena such as angels, demons, miracles. Which, those are kind of deemed paranormal experiences, right?
Right.
And so, let me explain something to you that happened while I was in, hospice care with my wife. There was a nurse, there and, my wife was, she was declining with brain cancer and it just wasn't right. And she said, Lauren, I want to show you a picture. And, so I went over there. Michelle, I've never seen anything like this in my whole life. And so this goes back to the phenomena. And there was a lady that was getting ready to pass and it was right there, not in the same room that my wife was, but it was in the same room that, it was in another room where this lady was getting ready to pass. Michelle, there was this huge, bright orange, yellow light.
Mm-hmm.
And this being, Michelle, had wings, and it was hovering, and it had little hands, and it was hovering right over the person that was getting ready to pass. Okay.
Right.
I was blown away, and I said, "Can I have that picture?" And she said, "No." She said, "I'd rather not, because this is very personal." It was a relative of hers, and so I get goosebumps thinking about, things that happen, the afterlife and ghost and after my wife passed, and I'm rambling too much, but after my wife passed and going through grief, I have struggled so much with grief. And I don't know. I don't tell very many people this, but now it's on my podcast. She reached out to me and it was kind of almost a soft voice. And she said, "I love you very much." Why did I hear that? I mean, I don't need to be, my kids, like I said, they would want me to be in the lunatic asylum. Okay. But I think there's a warfare that goes on with good and evil, in terms of the spirits that we deal with. What are your thoughts?
Sure, I completely agree with that. But also, maybe your wife was there and knew that you needed that message and that you needed to hear that. I mean, there has to be some sort of connectivity between those two souls that spent a lifetime together. And I feel like even when you're encountering people at a place like the asylum, they're also looking for that connectivity. And sometimes they might come across somebody that needs to hear something that they have to say. So
really,
no, I don't find that strange at all.
Wow. And so I've been to the asylum, like I said, and Rebecca took me to, she took me on a tour, and I won't tell you about the certificate she gave me. This is a G-rated thing. She didn't give me a G-rated certificate. She messed my life up. But,
we have a lot of those.
Oh my gosh, man, it was crazy. I said, she said, there's no charge for this. Well, whatever, Rebecca, you messed me up. But at any rate, I think that, when I was there, and I don't know whether I had a tour, whether I walked by myself, I can't remember. It's been some time ago, but I noticed the coldness, of the facility. It was very cold. And I would walk in and stare into a room and try to visualize exactly what happened in that room. I didn't know whether, because didn't he take drills to people's skulls and do vicious things to them to try to bring them back or something?
So, I mean, I know that some of the history that you hear about the progression of the mental health treatment seems really, really barbaric to us. But when you look back at the time frame and the history, I don't believe that anybody was doing anything experimental or, just horribly mean to torture and hurt these patients. They were doing what they believed was in the patient's best interest and medically plausible at the time. I always compare it to 100 years from now, somebody saying, "You took a Tylenol when you had a headache. You know how bad that was for you?" Because we do what we think is in the best interest, in the best practice of medicine right now. Those things change. So, yes, where they were performing lobotomies and hydrotherapy and electroshock therapy, and insulin shock therapy, which, they
Really?
believed that insulin was an antipsychotic at the time, but they were putting patients in diabetic comas.
Oh my gosh.
These are things that of course they progressed out of and realized, no, this is definitely not in the best interest of these human beings. And they started doing better. And I feel like that's going to be a continuing practice for the rest of our lives and the remainder of history.
So that's interesting because what you're saying is they put him in diabetic coma. And then was that, so the negative became a positive in the history of medicine, because of that because
I believe so, yes. So when you had a patient who was, suffering from psychosis and, just outbursts and violent behaviors, and all of a sudden you have insulin and you're injecting these patients with insulin and immediately they calm down, visibly that is a sign that medication is working. we know now that was not the case.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but at the time, what you saw was an improvement in that patient's symptoms. So until they knew better, they continued those practices.
Wow. So did anybody with that kind of a behavior, did you think somebody said, well, this is Satan. Satan is at work in this hospital. Because, that hospital is kind of in between the Bible Belt, right? I mean, there's probably a lot of good churches around that area. But what do you think their take was when they heard that he was doing lobotomies and he was cutting on people and trying to do stuff? Do you think that came from a Satan perspective or?
No, actually, I think in the earlier years of the asylum, the patients would be more associated with satanic things, that if you had a child who was born with some sort of disability, that people believed that you were being punished for indiscretions of the parent.
Oh, really?
So I think it was
wow.
more the patients who were looked upon as having some sort of, possession. This is, of course, way, way in the early years.
Sure. Yeah.
Of starting to understand that people, just have mental health ailments at times in their lives, and that some of those things can be combated and that people can get better and completely function in society, which we know now. But of course, back then, could you imagine when you had a child who was born with Down syndrome, what that would have looked like to a completely Christian community who just didn't understand that was a genetic
Well,
condition.
and that's, I was going to go there. So if my son had to be submitted to the asylum because he had Downs, people would say, okay, ta-da, he's in a place where he can be mutilated. No, I mean, and try to fix. I mean, so if they took on somebody that had Down syndrome, you think that they oh, okay, we're going to give him a lobotomy and we're going to look at this and then, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead. Getting back to my room experience, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, how can I perceive blood everywhere in this room? I had no idea that it was an operational room, but I had in my mind the viciousness and the bad, and you put it in good perspective, the bad that went along with that hospital.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. I think that a lot of people have that ability to kind of see what those rooms would have been used for. Sorry, hold on 1 second.
Okay. Get you some water, regroup.
I'm okay.
Okay.
So I think that, some people just have that ability to visualize what those areas would have been used for. But if you know a little bit about the history of the asylum, things changed so frequently that it's really hard to get a good read on what things were used for. Like you can see in the seclusion rooms that we have on the 3rd floor, when seclusion was outlawed, those seclusion rooms became somebody's office. There are actually outlets run on the wall so that somebody could plug in a computer. I mean, so
seclusion?
Yes.
Define that for me, seclusion.
So we have a row of seclusion rooms that would have been used in what we would consider the most violent men's ward.
Oh, wow.
And the men would be held in a 5-point restraint harness, and they would have stood in the middle of the room. And if somebody put you in seclusion, a staff member put you in seclusion, they were the only person who was permitted to check you out of seclusion. So you would have been put in this room, fed all of your meals, hosed down daily with a drain on the floor. Yes, for showering. You weren't taken out of there for meals. I mean, it was a pretty brutal practice for its time, even, and was outlawed pretty quickly because of how inhumane it is. But yeah, I mean, we have those things, but that became somebody's office later on. And then, I mean, it's just bizarre to think about how, with the needs of the patients and the needs of the asylum, how that space was utilized to absorb all of those necessities throughout the, years that it was open.
Wow. And so I'm trying to trail conversion dates, I guess, if you will. And we're not going to go through the whole spectrum, but 1958, 1864, the closing of 1994.
Sure.
There had to be some positive things that came about. So let's say he did his first lobotomy in 1864, and the guy bled out and died. And so now his soul is in that lunatic asylum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying basically the ghosts that are there are primarily people that actually died in that facility. Nobody else, right?
Well, I don't know, because some of our staff talk to people that they believe were orderlies and nurses and security guards. So I kind of feel like that energy can kind of reside from people who spent a majority of their time there and didn't necessarily have to die in that area. You know, one of the things that I like to tell people is when the asylum closed in 94, you know, people cried who had to leave that place because that was their home their entire lives. They didn't know anything different. So where we're thinking, thank God it closed because those people could go somewhere else or be reassimilated into the community. Some of those people didn't want to leave the only home that they had ever known. So it wasn't all bad, is what I try to get across to everyone. Sharp Hospital is what replaced the facility in 94, just on the backside of the original acreage of the property. And I believe they only transferred about 51 patients out of the asylum. Sharp Hospital that still fit the criteria for being fully institutionalized. Anyone who was deemed to be mentally capable of doing outpatient therapies and being assimilated into the community, they were in the 1990s.
So out of the 2,500 people, 50, what did you do with the 2,500 people?
Well, there were 2,500 people in the 1990s. That's one of the reasons that the facility closed. It was just too big and too expensive to continue with antipsychotic drugs on the market that would allow people to treat themselves at home. There really weren't that many patients left. And that was about the 1960s that it was severely overcrowded with 2,500.
Okay. Where I grew up at in California, there was a friend of mine. His dad worked in a mental institution, and he I to be honest with you, I don't know whether mental institutions are still viable in terms of a source that people. I mean, I know people can be hospitalized for depression and short stays and that type of thing, and then I know there's probably suicidal and I know there's drug rehabs and everything like that. But there's no place like the asylum that will ever reside in this country ever again, right?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe that we'll go back to a time of mass institutionalization. I just don't think that there is a need for that. Like I said, with all of the outpatient treatments and therapies and everything that we know now, are much more conducive to somebody getting better, which is kind of going back to people having a purpose in life. You know, if you don't have any purpose and your only job is to remain in that institution, there really isn't much hope or need for you to get better.
Well, I didn't anticipate this, and you know, I don't know how your time is, but we're almost to an hour. But
no, it's fine.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, yeah, I don't know whether this is a parallel. Okay. We talked a little about afterlife, ghost, you know, concepts of heaven, hell, soul's journeys after death. You know, there can be an interpretation of ghostly encounters or hauntings, and we've covered that. But I don't know how to bridge this. But look at the streets of San Francisco. Look at the streets of LA. And I know it's political season. I don't want to get into all this pros and cons, who to vote for, but
Sure.
we have a terrible situation on our hands that, in my opinion, almost that we need to open up something like the asylum. Okay. In order to house people, to get the help. And here's the deal. You said it and you nailed it on the head. When people have a purpose, okay, it's kind of like when a coal miner gets laid off, he should have been taught how to run a business, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, give people the tools and give them a purpose so they can then get back on their feet and make a living. But the homeless situation, and interrupt me, tell me to shut up, and I will. But the homeless situation is very critical. And again, I think, you know, do we open up an asylum? What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's definitely a crisis within itself, and I wish that we had answers. That's definitely something that we fight here in just our small town, the drug epidemic and homelessness. And just recently, my local city council just made camping within the city limits illegal. So I don't feel like there are a lot of humanitarian efforts to find a solution to those things
Nope.
as opposed to criminalizing those actions. So, yes, I mean, I feel like there should be some sort of community aspect in where we can get people that are, experiencing homelessness to give them some sort of place where they could thrive and learn to get some skills that would give them a better chance of becoming housed and getting a job and, just all of the things that are lacking. I don't know whether a mass institution like the asylum would be the answer to that, because I feel like we would still end up with the same issues that we had when it was overcrowded.
Okay.
Just not enough staff to take care of the people that and their needs,
Okay.
and that it would just become kind of a warehousing situation
Okay.
where, with actual protocol. I mean, I feel like that should be something that we should be able to do in smaller group sizes. Yeah, I do completely agree with you there.
Yeah, because stop and think about, man. I mean, you talk about the drug. I mean, I watched this segment on fentanyl in my hometown of Ventura, California, and I could flip the channel and it would be the same way in Atlanta. And we have a major problem. And I think that back in the day, Weston had a problem. Okay. And they cured the problem through the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, to be honest with you. And now, you guys are doing a relationship that can be very complex between paranormal claims and, part of people's faith and everything else like that, which is pretty cool, right?
Right. Well, we don't, I as an employee am absolutely at liberty to say that I believe that it's haunted, but, we can tell what other people's experiences are, but we don't ever go out there with a claim to tell anyone absolutely it's haunted. What we like to say is come see for yourself. You come and you tell us what you see and what you feel and what you think you experience while you're here. I know what happens to me when I go in there, and, my friends and my coworkers, and I know all of their stories, but, we just want that to be more of an individual thing for our visitors who come and see us.
So in closing and everything, thank you so much, Michelle, but
sure.
let me ask you something before I got to read my sponsor gig again, but how can people get in touch with you all? I mean, in order to get like groups, I mean, you guys are getting ready to close down for the winter, right?
So we close historic tours at about mid-November, and we do a big restoration project typically in the wintertime, and then we open for historic tours again in the spring. We're not temperature controlled, so it's not really visitor friendly for those walking tours in the wintertime, but we do ghost hunts and paranormal tours. We do those things all year round. But our website is talawv.com. That will give you all of our contact information, all of the events, and different things that you could book to come and visit us.
Say that again one more time, the website.
So it's TALA, so Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, TALAWV.com.
Okay, awesome. Listen, thank you so much. Let me just, Lem's Meat Varnish isn't just another meat sauce. It's a champion. Their sauces have taken multiple awards for best sauce and barbecue competition throughout the South. I know Chris very well, and I watched him grow the business. When you taste their secret recipe, you will understand why it's a winter. Oh, and by the way, their jalapeno fire syrup, man, it goes great on a lot of stuff. It's a genius of squirt in 104 different uses. Michelle, thank you very much, and we'll be posting this, and you can hear my dog. He's wanting to be fed and everything, but we'll be posting this tomorrow and everything. And we did hit an hour, okay?
Oh, good.
And so very, very good. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
It. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.